There would be a question and answer segment at the end of the discussion session. So if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves and ask. Please use the raise hand feature also in order to maintain the queue. If you are not speaking, please mute yourselves in order to minimize the disturbances. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
So thank you, Prajwal. Namaste. Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupini avatara varisthaya Rāmakrishnāya te namaha. So we are continuing our discussion on the philosophy of Dvaita by Madhvacharya. So I have to make a few statements at this stage. Because unlike Rāmānujā's system, Madhvacharya's Dvaita Siddhanta, Dvaita system engages in very almost hostile confrontation with the post-Shankarite philosophers of Advaita tradition. And so it's not possible to do justice to this discussion without mentioning some of these dialectical disputes and conflicts, which at one time made a lot of sensation among the intellectual circles, mostly the Sanskrit knowing pandits of Advaita, Viśiṣṭādvaita and Dvaita traditions. From 9th century AD up to almost the beginning of the 17th century. So each of these three systems has got one advantage and also one serious disadvantage. The advantage was that each of these systems was strongly defended and followed by a group, almost like a cult, because many of these pandits were born into that tradition and they had no choice and they followed the tradition, they studied those books. And of course, it doesn't mean that everyone born into that tradition actually mastered these philosophical classics, not necessarily. But in India it's called a sampradaya. Sampradaya means a community of people who traditionally followed or at least claimed to follow the teachings of one of these three philosophers. Of course, you have to remember Advaita, Dvaita and Viśiṣṭādvaita are only the most prominent schools of Vedanta, not the only schools of Vedanta. There were other schools like the schools of Vallabha, Nimbarka, Chaitanya and so on. But the most important dialectical works were written in these three traditions. So, and my approach in this regard should be very clearly stated. I don't belong to any of these conflicting groups. It is simply based on one great statement that Vivekananda made in modern times. He said, we are all evolving from Dvaita towards Advaita through Viśiṣṭādvaita. And this is a fact of our spiritual growth and spiritual evolution, spiritual progress. Everyone. Because there is a natural tendency among all spiritual seekers to look for the harmonizing, the unifying principles behind the apparent diversities. Those who focus only on the diversities, at Bhagavad Gita in the 18th chapter, Lord Krishna says, they are either Rajasiga or Tamasiga groups. Those who look for the harmonizing principles behind the diversities, they belong to the Sattvic temperament. This is an important principle. Swamiji says, we all begin with Dvaita And as we progress further and further, we go through this intermediary stage of Viśiṣṭādvaita, and eventually we reach the unifying, harmonizing spiritual experience of Advaita. So this is the principle that I follow. So to give an example, I just briefly mentioned this. So, for example, in Madhvacharya's system, there was a great dialectician, and his name was Vyāsatirtha, who wrote what might be called the most profound dialectical polemical work in the Dvaita tradition. It's called Nyāyāmrita, written by Vyāsatirtha. What he did in Nyāyāmrita was an attempt to refute all the arguments of the great Advaitins who lived during the post-Shankarite time, post-Shankarite period. That's from 9th century, from the time of Vajaspati, then Sureshwara, then continued. Sureshwara wrote Brihadaranyaka Vartika in Aishkarma Siddhi. Vajaspati wrote Bhamati on the Brahmasutra Bhashya of Shankaracharya. And then Srihasa wrote Khandana Khandagadya. Chitsukacharya wrote Tattva or Chitsukhi. Anandabodha wrote Nyaya Deepavali. And of course, a still more important work is Panchapadika by Padmapada, one of Shankaracharya's own disciples, and Panchapadika Vivarana written by Prakasatmayedi, who wrote a commentary on Panchapadika and Vivarana Prameya Sangraha. Like that it goes on. So, what happened was, before the coming of Madhusudana, Vyasatirtha, the great dialectician of the Madhva tradition, wrote Nyāyāmrita, and in that book he completely refuted, or he thought he refuted successfully, all the arguments in favor of Advaita, especially his refutations of Mithyatvam, the concept of which I referred to earlier, the 5 definitions of Mithyatvam that are found in the works of Padmapada by Panchapadika, and then Prakasatmayedi, Panchapadika Vivarana, and there are 2 definitions in the Panchapadika Vivarana, that is Pratipannau Bādhu, Traikālika Nisheda Prayogitam Va Mithyatvam, and Jnana Nivartyatvam Va Mithyatvam in Panchapadika Vivarana, and Chitsukacharya's definition, Swasya Nishtha Atyanta Abhava Prayogitam Va Mithyatvam in Tattva that is Chitsuki, and Nyaya Deepavali, that's Sabhiviktatvam Va Mithyatvam. All these definitions were refuted by Vyasatirtha in his Nyāyāmrita. Now, to give an example, you know what Vyasatirtha actually does. So, it may be slightly academically very interesting, very exciting. You have heard of this well-known Mahavakya in the Chandogya Upanishad. Aitadatmimidam sarvam tasatyam sa atma tattvam-asi shvetaketu. This is a great Upadesha Vakya, Tattwamasi, an instruction by Uddalaka to Shvetaketu. It comes in the Chandogya Upanishad of the Samaveda tradition. It comes, in fact, it comes the 9th Khanda up to 16th Khanda. There's continuous discussion of Tattwamasi with fresh examples. So one statement followed by 8 repetitions. Each repetition followed by, reinforced by a new example, a new illustration to drive home the implication of Tattwamasi. What does Tattwamasi mean? I mentioned this earlier, but how Vyasatirtha butchers the statement and brings out his own wonderful conclusion. To understand this, you have to keep in mind. Uddalaka is the guru and the father. Shvetaketu is a disciple and son. Shvetaketu was sent outside the his own hermitage. Uddalaka sent him to some other great saint for studying the Vedas. After some time he returned, and the father found the son was very proud and haughty. So the father wanted to put some humility into his mind. So asked, did you learn that by learning which everything becomes known? Do you know that by knowing which everything becomes known? And Shvetaketu said, I never even heard of such a thing. Then Uddalaka goes on describing, and finally, in this from 16th khanda, sorry, 9th khanda onwards, Tat Tvam Asi Mahavakya begins. So the statement is Aidadatmimidam sarvam tasatyam sa atma Tat Tvam Asi. So all that which is the entire universe is permeated, enveloped by one reality which is omnipresent everywhere. And that is the Atma of, that is the essence of all that you find. Idam sarvam. It is nothing, it's Atman is that reality. And Tat Satyam, that is the real truth. And Sa Atma, that is the Atman. And then he says, Tat Tvam Asi, that Atman in you yourself. This is a statement. So, the son did not immediately catch the implication. He thought, see, I am here a 6 feet tall fellow. I am the Atman. I am this physical body. I eat my food. I go for medical treatment. I study the Vedas. And father tells me I am the Atman. So the son did not understand immediately. And so, Bhuya eva ma bhagavan vijñāpayatu. Please teach me again. Bhuya eva ma bhagavan vijñāpayatu. Please teach me again. And so, then the father gives another instruction. I mean, the same instruction but repeated. Abhyasa, repeated. First repetition, second repetition, third, fourth and fifth, sixth and seventh and eighth repetition. By that time, 16th khanda. And then Shvetaketu understood the meaning. So each time with a fresh illustration, Uddalaka taught Shvetaketu the real meaning of Tat Tvam Asi. That reality is you yourself, the Upadeshavakya. Now here is a problem. So Vyasatirtha says, no. It is something different. Actually, Sa Atma Atatvam Asi. This should be the way to interpret. Sa Atma is not Tattvam but Atatvam. So behind a consonant, if you put A, it becomes the opposite meaning. You are not that. That's the meaning. So Vyasatirtha says, Vyasatirtha in his Nyayamrita, he says, Adya Khande Swadandra Shankana Anaspada Sushupti Nidarsanena Chadurthe Channaya Vitirekoktya Ashtame Cha Swadandriya Shankana Anaspada Marana Nidarsanena Ishvara Adhinatvam Asya Uktitvad. Ishvara Adhinatvam. You are not that. You are under him. That means you are not that Ishvara, you are not Atman, you are under the control of that Atman. So that's why, Swadandriya Shanka Anaspada Nidarsanena Ishvara Adhinatvasya Uktatvad. So Ishvara Adhinatva means Jiva is under the control of Ishvara. Atat ityeva chedu yuktaha. So, cheda means padacheda. So, you should split Tat Tvam Asi as Atat Tvam Asi. Actually, from Vyakarana standpoint, from grammatical standpoint, it can be defended because, see, Atma, the A, Akara, the long vowel, it can be further lengthened and A can be added to Ta, so it becomes Atat Tvam Asi. So grammatically, it can be defended, this butchering of Tat Tvam Asi Mahavakya. This is the style, to give an example. Now remember, you should never get away with the impression that Vyasatirtha was ignorant or that he was not an enlightened person. He was a great saint. He was an enlightened person, but it means he belongs to that tradition, so he thought it was his duty to defend his philosophy at any cost, even by taking liberty with the common sense of a student of Vedas. To give an example. So that's why I often want to repeat again, it doesn't mean that Vyasatirtha was bad or Madhva was wrong, not at all. Actually, Madhva is correct. Just a primary school student, what he studies is not wrong. He cannot say only what Einstein studies is physics. What a student studies in 10th standard is not physics. What a student studies in his primary class is also physics. And what Einstein teaches is also physics. Two different levels of your understanding, your comprehension of the fundamental principles of science. That's what it implies. So as we evolve further, we get a more complete picture of the reality. There is an evolution from many to one, from without to within. So I am just giving one simple example. Again, you have to remember, Madhvacharya, Vyasatirtha, they were all great devotees. Vyasatirtha was a guru of one of the greatest monarchs who lived in South India. He was the greatest king belonging to Vijayanagar Empire. He was Krishnadevaraya. Vyasatirtha was a great saint. He was also a great saint who inspired the very father figure of South Indian Carnatic music tradition, Purandradasa. So that's the greatness of Vyasatirtha. But the dialectical level, it doesn't mean that they were fighting. This is an interesting tradition that prevailed in India. It doesn't exist right now, because somebody who belongs to a philosophical tradition, he will consider it his duty and responsibility to defend it at any cost. It's a classic example. So I have to introduce this to modern Western world. That's why I'm giving all this background information. If you're in India, there is no need to give all this background information. It's an interesting thing. Now, what's the concept of Madhvacharya's God? Because we will continue this for some time. Actually, Dvaita Siddhanta deserves a much more elaborate treatment than even Viśiṣṭādvaita. Because among all the Vedantic systems, Dvaita Siddhanta is the richest in his philosophical literature after Advaita. The second richest philosophical literature belongs to Dvaita tradition of Madhvacharya. So according to him, his God himself, Vasudeva Param Brahma Kalyana Guna Samyutaha Bhuvananam Upadhanam Karta Jiva Niyamakaha. So this is in a nutshell Madhvacharya's concept of God. Vasudeva Param Brahma. So Vasudeva, Vishnu, Krishna, all these are different names for the same divine aspects. Kalyana Guna Samyutaha is the embodiment of all auspicious qualities and attributes. So, Bhuvananam Upadhanam Karta Jiva Niyamaka. So, he is controlling all the jivas and is also the actual doer behind all actions. So, Advaitins uses word like, agunam or nirgunam, akriyam, ashariram, all that. So agunam or nirgunam doesn't mean devoid of any attributes, rather beyond all attributes, transcending the definitions in terms of certain attributes, certain actions, or certain embodiments. That's the real meaning of ashariram, akriyam, etc. On the other hand, Madhvacharya says this Vasudeva he has got a divine body, divya sharira, divine body, and is samasta kalyana guna akaram, means is the repository of all auspicious qualities and greatness. And according to Madhvacharya, wherever the Upanishads mention words like Asariram, Sarireshu, like you find Upanishads are full of these expressions. It is Asariram, but Sarireshu Avasthitam. So, it is beyond, it is devoid of bodies, but it is residing in all bodies. So, some of the important statements in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad in Antaryami Brahmana, all are examples of this. And there is a statement, Yasya prasadat paramarthi rupat asma samsara muchchedena aparena narayanosu paramo vichintyo mumukshuvi karma pashadamushmat. So, one gets liberation, jivas get liberation only by the grace of Narayana. Yasya prasadat. By his grace, by his kripa only, jivas get liberation. And this Narayana or Vishnu, Vasudeva is the ultimate object of meditation. The Paramo Vichintyo, Mumukshubi, those who are aspirants of liberation, they should meditate upon, they should propitiate this Narayana for getting freedom from this bondage of karmas. This is the ultimate principle of Madhvacharya. In fact, the followers of Madhvacharya considers Madhva as the third incarnation of Vayu. Now you can find, unlike Advaita system, Madhvacharya leans towards many of the mythological or Puranic literature of Hindu tradition. In Shankaracharya's tradition, he gave maximum importance, supreme importance, significance to Upanishads. So in his commentary, you often find it is Srutescha, is mentioned in the Srutis. By Shruti, Shankaracharya means the Upanishad, the Jnana Kanda. And Upanishads constitute the essence of the spiritual philosophy of Vedic literature. And there is an ancient tradition which I referred to earlier, which was accepted by all Indian teachers, that whenever there is a conflict in philosophy, in the performance of rituals or spiritual disciplines, whenever there is a conflict between statements found in the Upanishads and statements found in the mythological books called Puranas and statements found in the Smritis, you should always consider the statements found in the Upanishads as the ultimate, as the supreme authority. At the second tier, second level, below the Upanishads, we have Smritis, and below the Smritis, the last importance is given to Puranas or Mahabharata. Though, of course, Bhagavad Gita is an exception, it is one of the Prasthanatraya. But in Madhva system, he gave equal importance to even the Karmakanda. So that's why he wrote a commentary on some of the suktas of the first mandala of Rigveda Samhita. So in their tradition, in the Madhva tradition, Madhvacharya is considered to be the third incarnation. The first incarnation of Vayu. Vayu is the god of air. So Vayu's first incarnation was Hanuman. Second, Bhima, who was a big fighter in the Mahabharata war, one of the Pandavas. And the third incarnation is Madhva himself. So Prathamo Hanuman Nama Dvitiyo Bhima Evacha Purna Prajna Stradiyastu Bhagavatkari Sadhakaha. So Purna Prajna was the original name, but he came to be known as Madhvacharya. So, it's a very interesting, the importance of Madhvacharya as an incarnation of a mythological figure itself. Such a concept itself, in a way, shows some of the interesting aspects of the Madhva system. And of course, so I will now come to some other important aspects. So we are just beginning this discussion. So I just wanted to make our audience understand some of the important special characteristics and features of Madhva system. So according to Madhvacharya, there are two categories in philosophy. One is Swatantra, that is Aswatantra. Parambrahma, that is Vasudeva, Vishnu is the only Swatantra. Swatantra means independent, absolute reality. But remember, here it should be emphasized, Madhvacharya considers the world and all the empirical things to be as real as Brahman itself, as God himself. So, but then the only difference is Brahman or Vishnu or Vasudeva is Swatantra, independent, and everything else is dependent upon Vishnu. So that is Dvidam hi prameyam Swatantram Aswatantram cha. It comes in Madhvacharya system, of course, it comes in Nyaya Sudha. Nyaya Sudha is an important book written in the Madhva tradition. So it says Dvidam hi prameyam Swatantram Aswatantram cha. In Nyaya Sudha, it's written by. It's a commentary on Anuvyakhyana, which actually is a small book, a small work in metrical forms on the teachings of Brahma Sutras, and Jayatitha wrote a commentary. It's called Nyaya Sudha. Again, the Madhva tradition has some serious differences with regard to the concept of infinity or concept of the transcendent nature of the absolute reality. For example, in Advaita, Shankaracharya and other Advaitins, his followers, assert and emphasize that the absolute reality cannot be perceived or comprehended at the empirical level by any of the five senses or by any of the tools of epistemology. Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Sabda, Arthabhati, Anuvalabdhi. Advaitins accept such six pramanas, that is direct perception, inference, analogy, then verbal testimony, presumption and negation. So, Advaitins again and again assert that the absolute reality Brahman is beyond the comprehension of any of the tools of epistemology. Sarva pramana vati. Now, according to Madhva system, there cannot be anything which is beyond the perception of either pratyaksha, anumana, or sabda. These three pramanas are very important for Madhva tradition. They say everything in this world is comprehensible and everything can be explained in the light of either direct perception or inference or verbal testimony. Yadina angikritam kinjit anangikritatapi nangikarodi moksya idi nasmad vivadita. It's a very, it comes in the Anuvyakhyana of Madhvacharya's own book. So he says, there cannot be anything in this world which is beyond all the perceptions of verbal testimony and direct perception or inference. No, again, of course, I'm trying to give just a bird view of some of the interesting features of Madhvacharya, and we cannot do that without referring to its polar opposite, that is Advaita. It is not with a view to ridicule or belittle Madhva system. It is certainly a great philosophical system, but we can understand the position of Madhva Siddhanta only in the light of Advaita, because Advaita has been explained earlier. So I can just, I'm just reading one very interesting, famous passage from a book by Jayatirtha. He is one of the foremost dialecticians who appeared after Madhvacharya, before the period of Vyasatirtha. So Jayatirtha is one of the major figures. In his position in Dvaita Siddhanta is equal to the position of Vedanta Desika in the Rāmānujā tradition. So, just interesting, I'm just reading. Eke tu ekemeva tattvamidi manyante. So, it's a reference, Jayatirtha. He writes in the Tattva Sankhyana Tika. It's a Tika, is on Tattva Sankhya. So, he says, some philosophers for Eke to Ekameva Tattvam Manyante. According to some philosophers, Ekameva Tattvam, reality is only one, is reference to Advaita. So you can imagine how the Dvaitins approach Advaita and Advaitins' concept of oneness and of reality, or the unity and oneness of existence. Tad Asat. He says, no, it cannot be correct. This is not correct. Why? Pratyakshadi virodhat. It contradicts the experience at the empirical level. Pratyaksha means direct perception. The first step, the most important of the tools of epistemology, is pratyaksha pramana. Means what you perceive at the level of your five senses and mind. So when you see something with your eyes, you perceive something at the visual level. When you hear something, you are perceiving at the audio level. Like that, all the five senses of perception and mind together perceive different empirical experiences, or empirical objects, so to speak. And Jayatirtha says, the idea, the Advaitic idea of the one supreme reality being the only absolute reality, everything else is mithya, in the sense non-absolutes. That is, that contradicts, that goes against the basic principles of direct perception. Pratyakshadi virodha, Jayatirtha says. Now remember one thing, in Advaita, there is a very strong, very important principle. Whatever you perceive at the empirical level, for that very reason, it is unreal. It is not absolutely real. If somebody tells, I seen Brahman, you can be sure that he is the first class liar. Because not only he thinks that Brahman is something that could be seen, but is also telling a lie. So there are many such statements in the Upanishads, and Bhashyas are written on all these important statements by Shankaracharya. So here Jayatirtha says, Eke tu ekameva tattvam idi manyante tad asat pratyakshadi virodhat. Sarvasya, then he goes off with the explanation continues. Sarvasya swadandritve nitya sukhadi prasangaha. Well, it goes against reason, against direct perception. He says, so there must be more than one reality. Why? Suppose somebody argues, sarvasya swadandritte. If you argue that everything in this world is equally independent, everything, Vishnu is independent and all these things are also independent. Remember, in Madhva Siddhanta, Vishnu or Vasudeva is the only Swatantra or independent reality. Other things are real, but they are dependent upon God or Vasudeva. Everything in this world is real, but there's a difference. Vishnu, Vasudeva is the only independent category. Everything else is dependent upon Vasudeva. So, Jayatirtha's key argument continues. Sarvasya swadantritve nitya sukhadi prasangaka. Suppose you say, if all these things are equally independent, then you have to admit that everyone will be happy all the time. There cannot be any bondage. There is no need of any spiritual practice. Everything is one with the Supreme Reality. Here again you have to remember, it's interesting, those who study, to keep in mind in Advaita. In Advaita Siddhanta, once you realize your transcendental reality, your Swarupa, your true Swarupa, then you become one with the Supreme Reality. Brahmavit Brahmaiva Bhavati. When you realize Brahman, you realize that you are non-different from Brahman, the Tat Tvam Asi. Now, this is actually a level of mystical experience. In Jivan Mukti Viveka and other books, Vidyaranya's famous book, and elsewhere you find this kind of total identity with Brahman, which is Supreme Reality, the only Supreme Reality. That identity is a kind of mystical experience. It is called Jiva Brahma Aikyam. It is not a concept. So at that mystical level, you feel one with the Supreme Reality. But that consciousness may not remain the same all the time. It is there, but that Jivan Mukta continues to live in this world. So, Advaita is not a concept, it is only an anubhuti. So, anyway, Jayatirtha's argument continues. He says, Sarvasya Swadhantrite Nitya Sugadi Prasangaka. If everything in this world, all jivas, all objects in Jagat, and Brahma, all are same like Vishnu or Vasudeva, in that case, everyone will be all the time enjoying eternal bliss. But you don't find that in this world. You don't find it to be real in this world. And then he says, again, if all these objects are equally dependent, for example, Vishnu is also dependent, what happens? Then there will not be anything which is anyone who is independent. That's why, so aswadantre cha nakasyapi pravuttihi. If everyone is dependent, then there cannot be any activity in this world. There cannot be a creation. There cannot be an Ishvara. There cannot be a God. There cannot be any concept of either grace or anything. That's why aswadantre cha nakasyapi pravuttihi antha pungavasyadidi chetna. So that needs some explanation. Now, suppose somebody says, well, for example, this coexistence of the independent and independent, Vasudeva, and also other independent entities. Vasudeva is Swatantra, is independent, and other things are non-dependent. If their coexistence is like the coexistence of a blind man and a lame person, that's why Anthabungavatsya idi chetna. If you argue this world is going on like this, some beings are independent, other beings are dependent. It's just like a combination, a coordination between a blind man and a lame person. Lame person cannot walk, but he can see. A blind person can walk, but he cannot see. So, lame person can walk, lame person cannot walk. Sorry, please, let me be clear. Antha means blind man. Punga means lame person. A lame person can see, but he cannot walk. A blind man can walk, but cannot see. Suppose the ability of a blind man to walk and the ability of a lame man to see come together, it will be like independent entities and dependent entities coming together. This is how the world is going on. If you argue like that, no, it is not correct. That's the meaning here. So, the Sanskrit statement is very simple. Antha pungavat syat iti chet na. This simple statement. But it means Antha is a blind person. He cannot see, but he can walk. Punga is a lame person who is lame. He cannot walk, but he can see. So the ability of a blind man to walk, he can walk, and the ability of a lame person to see, so they walk together. This it be like the independent entities and dependent entities coming together. This is how the world is going. If you argue like that, it is not acceptable. Jatirtha says. So if it's not clear to you, you can ask questions later, because this is a very complicated text. So I'm trying to explain English as clearly as possible. Pratyasattehi eva anubhavattihi yadi sarvasya eva swantram syad tada paratantyadi pratidi virodha. Suppose you say, well, everyone is free. Vasudeva, God is free, and all jivas, individual souls also are free. Then you are contradicting the reality, because many people often feel a kind of dependence, inability, a kind of helplessness. If everyone in this world is swatantra, is independent, fully endowed, like Vasudeva himself, then you are negating the experience that you find in this world. What is the experience? We often feel people are not able to do what they want to do. There is paratantriya, there is dependence, lack of freedom. So that's a fact that everyone experiences, that cannot be denied. Nitya sukhadi prasangascha. So then what happens, what really happens is, if all are conceived to be independent, there will be violation of the experience of dependence and the characters of fortitude. If all are equally dependent, if everyone is equally aswatantra, then there will be no independent principle, there will be no one to control this world, there will be no source of grace, there will be no one to create this world, no one to control the world. If you say that Vasudeva is dependent, jivas are dependent, everything in this world is dependent, without any independent entity, then how can you conceive of a God who is independent, who creates this world, who can bless you, who can give you enlightenment and freedom, who can reward for your good actions? If you cannot think of any such ultimate creator God, then that goes against the basic logic of creation and experience. So, in other words, there will be total chaos in this world. That's what he says. Anavasthidehi asambhavatvacha na kasyabhi sattvadigam syat. Then what happens? There will be kind of instability. Anavasthidatva means a kind of instability. Everything will be total chaos. And that goes against the logic of creation and existence. These are some of the classic, just sample of arguments between different dialecticians. So you can imagine, Advaitins tell you that Brahman is only reality, everything in this world is real, but not absolutely real, and it is called mithya. According to Madhva's theory, God is real, everything in this world is all equally real, the same level of reality. Ontologically, everything in this world, every insect in this world, every tree and plant in this world, every living being in this world is real, and God also real. The same level of reality. So you have to remember, in Advaita, Shankaracharya divides reality into three levels: Paramarthika, Vyavaharika, Pradibhasika. Paramarthika is the absolute reality. It is unborn, it is deathless. Ajam, Avyayam, etc. It always exists, so it is unborn. So it never perishes. That is Brahman only. And this empirical, worldly, phenomenal experiences, objects are all real only in the relative sense. It's called Vyavaharika. And then there are certain things that exist because those ideas exist in our mind because of memory, Pradibhasika. Depending upon previous experiences, many ideas may exist in our mind in the form of memory, smritirupa or adhyasa. Like, for example, you are seeing a snake on a rope because there is not enough light. The rope is there, but you mistake the rope for a snake because the snake exists as an idea, as a memory in your mind. You superimpose that previous experience on the rope you are looking at because there is not enough light. So there are three levels of reality. Paramarthika, which you can never empirically comprehend or objectify. You cannot comprehend, you cannot see, you cannot perceive any of the, you cannot perceive the absolute reality at the empirical level. Whatever you experience at the empirical level is actually non-absolute, just because you are experiencing it. This may appear to be a bit puzzling. Advaita tells you, just because you are looking at an object, you are looking at a chair, or a table, or a tree, you are seeing with your eyes, and your mind also is cooperating, so you comprehend that object to be a tree or a chair. Because you comprehend it at the empirical level, Advaitins will tell you it is not absolute reality. Because only relative phenomenal realities can be objectified at the empirical level. So just because you say, I have seen a tree, that tree is not absolute reality, because the absolute reality cannot be empirically comprehended. Now, that distinction is absent in the non-Advaitic systems. This is an important point to remember. Madhvacharya will tell you, God is real, the tree you are looking at is also real. Both belong to the same level of reality, but they belong to two different levels of freedom. That is, God is independent, the tree, the different living beings, all other entities are dependent. So, Swatantram, Aswatantram. You have to remember, that's why I mentioned this earlier, the first important principle. Dividham hi prameyam. Whatever you perceive, whatever you experience in this world, they are twofold. One is Swatantram, Aswatantram cha. So, and he says that, according to Madhvacharya, he says, complete picture of everything in this world can be understood only when we consider all entities, both empirical, phenomenal entities, as well as the transcendental reality, as the same, as belonging to the same level of reality. The difference is only in terms of their freedom, that is, Brahman or Vishnu, according to Madhvacharya, Brahman here means Vasudeva, Vishnu, etc. And Vishnu is a concept of monotheistic supreme God who has certain qualities and attributes, and that's the only independent entity. Everything else in this world is dependent. So in terms of independence and dependence, there is a difference. But in terms of ontological status, reality, they belong to the same category. That's why Dvitam hi prameyam, both are prameya. But Advaitins will tell you, Brahman is not prameya. Prameya means something that is an object of pramana. It is perceived by pramata. Pramata is the knower, the perceiver, the seer. The one who sees is pramata. Prameya is the object of that act of seeing. Pramana is the tool for comprehending, deciding as to what object is. And according to Madhvacharya or Madhvacharya, you may call anything Dvaita Siddhanta, everything is prameya. Everything can be perceived. I mean, God can be empirically seen. That's the meaning. So there are many interesting features in this philosophy. But you have to remember, we should never get away with the impression one system is wrong, the other system is right. No. Vedanta never tells you that any system is wrong. Vedanta tells you that every system is right, but belonging to that particular level of accuracy or comprehension. As we evolve, we get a more and more complete picture of the supreme reality. That is the real implication of Swamiji's simple statement. Swamiji did not elaborate this, but Swamiji said, we are traveling not from error to truth, but truth that is lower to truth that is higher. Lower, Swamiji meant incomplete. Incomplete. That's all. See, the knowledge of a primary school student is not wrong, but it is incomplete compared to the knowledge of a professor or his own teacher. So there is absolutely no conflict, no contradiction. This is important. And I also tell you, Madhvacharya produced many outstanding sages. Or even not only Madhvacharya, but even after him also, one of the greatest saints of those times in India was Viśiṣṭādvaita himself, who was the source of inspiration for such a great devotional genius like Purandradasa. And also he was the Raja Guru of the great king of Vijayanagar, that is Krishnadeva, the great emperor of Vijayanagar Empire. So this is a historical background I give, that's all. Now you can ask questions, most welcome. Right.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Seeing no hands up yet, well, I just did. I'll ask a first question.
Yeah.
And it sounds to me, as you described some of the history of Viśiṣṭādvaita's influence.
Yeah.
I got the impression that he was a central figure of inspiration for some of the great musical composers that followed. Both at the heights and also in the vernacular, in the streets.
Yeah.
And at first I was thinking, well, that's just because it's a devotionally inclined school of philosophy.
Yeah.
But then I realized that, of course, there's music in other forms, chants, psalms, in all the schools of philosophy. So there may have been some special power besides the bhakti in Viśiṣṭādvaita.
Yes, certainly, absolutely right. Absolutely right. See, surprisingly, you find there is a lot of dialectical writing centering around Vyasatirtha. It was refuted by Madhusudana Saraswati in Advaita Siddhi, which is one of the masterpieces of post-Shankara, one of the Advaitic masterpieces written during the post-Shankarite time. So, and then there is Tarangini, again defense of both Advaita Siddhi and also Nyayam in later years by both Advaitins and Dvaitins. And you find that among these, right, they never mentioned Purandaradasa's connection with Vyasatirtha. So that human aspect, he was a great sage, a great devotee who could inspire, a great poetical genius, a great composer who is supposed to have composed more than hundreds of thousands of wonderful devotional songs. He was the father of the Carnatic music. So very interesting. So that's a speciality of Indian heritage, you find. In all traditions, there were these great saints who may say something, but their books do not give a complete picture of the man behind those books. Look at Shankaracharya's tradition. He was the one who wrote the most astounding devotion poetry in Sanskrit. In Sanskrit, mind you. No one could write anything like Shankaracharya's devotion poem. None of these bhakti teachers could write anything even closely approaching Shankaracharya's poetical masterpieces. Just imagine. Even the one that we played during the last puja session, it is from Shankara only. In one of our puja sessions we played of the great poetical works, devotional poems of Shankaracharya. So that is a different picture. Very often this is not well understood. Sometimes people write books saying that Madhva and Shankaracharya are fighting with each other. Absolutely ridiculous. So the point is, Madhvacharya was born in 1200 in the early part of 13th century and passed away in the beginning of the 14th century. Yeah, that's true. So practically 500 years after Shankaracharya's times. And 500 years is a long period in those days, It's a long period. So that should be kept in mind to get the full picture of the evolution of thought and philosophy in those days. Thank you for the wonderful observations, Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj. David, please, I see your hand up.
I have some very important announcement I would remind you at the end of this session. So that's why I'm looking for. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Swami,
yeah.
It seems to me that those devotees who come to...
Yeah, please continue, yeah.
Those devotees who come to the Ramakrishna order, we are given, the first thing we're given is Rāmānujā and then Advaita, but it seems to me that Ramakrishna order devotees we don't seem to ever follow the path of Madhavacharya. Is that correct?
That's true, you are absolutely correct. Today you find very few among the enlightened thinkers who claim to follow Madhvacharya. I think one of the important reasons could be his concept of nitya samsari, means concept of the eternal damnation. See, that goes against the basic principles of Hindu spiritual heritage. So he says there are certain demons who are permanently living in hell. That sort of thing, almost like some of the extreme radical views of some of the Abrahamic schools of religion. That is totally different, So that you are right. But remember, from a philosophical perspective, you have to keep in mind that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's system owes allegiance to Madhva rather than Rāmānujā. That's an important thing among the Vaishnava traditions. In terms of philosophical perspective, it is believed that ISKCON or Hare Krishna movement is philosophically somehow linked to Madhva tradition, Madhvacharya's tradition.
Do the Vaishnavas believe in an eternal damnation?
No. I don't. No, ISKCON and Hare Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never believed in that. He never did not believe in that. Vallabhacharya was a Vaishnava, Nimbarka was a Vaishnava, Rāmānujā, they didn't believe that. I don't know how this idea came to him, one of the strange ideas of Madhva Siddhanta. I had discussions on this subject with some of the traditional scholars of that school, and they did not seem to have much appreciation for that perspective. Though, so it's a fact, okay? Yeah, interesting, okay, yeah.
Thank you, Swami.
Yeah. But again, I want to insist that as individual saints, they were all great devotees. Even I told you earlier, the Advaitins who wrote these great books on Advaitic dialectics, every day they were doing puja and worship and going to temples and reciting devotional poems, and then they wrote about a religion that goes beyond temples. So that's a lifestyle. Okay. Again, the reason is that, see, Martin Luther, he did not believe in the concept of this canonization or sainthood. Suppose Martin Luther one day, Martin Luther is found to be praying to St. Augustine or St. Aquinas or St. Paul and St. Peter. In Western world, they would have called him a hypocrite, but not in Hinduism. That's a difference. But all they write Mangalacharana, the invocation. The invocation is mostly addressed to one of their deities, whom they are worshipping every day. Nobody asked him, why are you praying to Lord Krishna? After writing this book, in the very invocation, that question never arose into tradition. If Martin Luther had done it, suppose Martin Luther writes a wonderful poetical work paying tributes to St. Augustine, St. Aquinas, or anyone, St. Teresa of Avila, I don't think he will be justified. There will be great criticism, but not in India. That's understood. Okay, yeah.
Well, why is the doctrine of eternal damnation, it doesn't seem to have taken hold at all in India, but in the West, I think I sent you that, it can be up to 50% of
yeah, you mentioned that,
believers.
Yeah. I believe you're right, it has gone so deep. In fact, some people do believe, apparently well educated, they believe that maybe hellfire is waiting for me because I'm becoming so broad-minded. I'm practicing yoga, so maybe I'm going to hell. That fear is at the subconscious level. It's a real problem. The only way out is to get rid of those ideas. Today we had a talk on Advaita. Advaita is simple common sense, I mentioned. And Advaita is simple spiritual common sense. You become a good human being, no matter what religion you follow, what God you pray to or meditate upon. You basically become a good human being, compassionate, understanding. That's the best way to practice Advaita. Now, perhaps Advaitins are the only people who let a courage to say this. They don't insist you should pray to this particular specific God. No. All these writers prayed, but did not say you should pray to this God only. They didn't say that. That's the only difference. Swami Vivekananda made a very interesting statement. It catches the spirit of this problem. He says, in the West, there was freedom at the social level. There was no ban on crossing the ocean as in India there was to be. This divisiveness and this casteism and things like that. Social inequality. Problem in India among Hindus. Mostly maybe all traditions they had this problem. One way or other. But there was no... So in the West, nobody will ban you because you cross the ocean. But in India, it has a problem for many centuries, not now. If you cross the ocean, it is a terrible thing. You should not do that. That is, no freedom at the social level. But same person in his family, father may be going to Shiva temple, mother going to Krishna temple, another one may be a communist, an agnostic, an atheist, no problem. It's common in Indian families. Nobody bothers about it. There's freedom at the spiritual level, but no freedom at the social level. So, in a way, an ideal society should be a combination of the merits, the plus points, the advantages of both. I mean, the social freedom and spiritual freedom. You can imagine somebody who translated Bible into one of the European vernaculars. For that, he was burnt at stake. It happened. Those who translated Bible into Czechoslovakian language, Hungarian language, it's a terrible crime. In India it never happened. Because there were saints who did not know Sanskrit. There were many saints born in communities who had no access to Sanskrit education. But they were great saints. They also taught great truths. Today also you find many great saints. They were not Sanskrit scholars necessarily. And their status still remained very exalted, very high in society. There was absence of social freedom in India, but there was no absence of religious freedom. So it produced many saints and mystics. In the West, there was no religious freedom, but there was social freedom. So you find all these crossing the oceans, going in search of new colonies, in search of new raw materials. All that happened because of the adventurous spirit which this social freedom gave to the people. Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda says, an ideal society will have we have both social freedom and religious freedom. A very idealistic concept. Okay.
Maharaj, begging Sri Ram's pardon,
Yeah.
on that subject, might it not be said that with a relentless shining sun of high idealism, pure idealism, as you find in Advaita Vedanta,
Yeah.
there's no need to banish other people to
Yeah.
hell,
Yeah.
to blame anybody
Yeah.
for one's own imperfections. It imbues a certain self-reliance because of the idealism.
Precisely, yeah. So
Whereas
true.
without that,
Yeah.
with some sort of qualified idealism,
Absolutely,
there
absolutely.
might be a tendency to want to lift oneself at somebody else's expense.
Yeah. That's true. No, Advaita is established in this principle of the basic human urge for something that is universal, that is all accommodating. It's a basic human urge. Frequently, that is suppressed by the hierarchies. You should follow this pattern of worship. So that is terrible, So that's why many of the saints received only post-mortem canonization, recognition. They had to wait till their death. Long after their death only they were recognized. So that's a problem.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Sri
Thank
Ram.
you. Thank you for your observations. Very, very thoughtful.
Well, it's that language of idealism which is not always a welcome word in the West.
Yeah.
Somehow there's a skepticism about that.
Yeah.
Sri Ram, you're next.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A small technical question.
Yeah.
You said the Hanuman is considered an incarnation of Vayu.
Uh-huh.
He is known as Vayu Putra Pavana Sutta Maruti, means son of Vayu.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah. Hanuman, that's a belief, his incarnation. So, the followers of Madhvacharya believes Hanuman is not only the son but also reincarnation of Vayu. And Bhima was the incarnation of Hanuman. And Madhvacharya was the incarnation of Bhima. So you find around all these great saints and philosophers, there will be some stories and mythological ideas forming. It's natural in India. It's a common thing. We don't go and tell them, no, you are wrong. We don't say that. If they believe, don't bother about it. So I think we had a very wonderful discussion, but I have some important announcements which may take some time for me to complete. So there will be no class on the foundational text of Indian philosophy. On the next Sunday, March 26th, we will have our Memorial Day program on 26th and 27th. 26th, we will have devotees panel discussion on the topic surrender to God and service to humanity, and a music program. It will be held in Ulima retreat. So please remember, 26th May, Sunday, we will have our devotees retreat program in Ulima. So there will be no class on foundational text of Indian philosophy. And then we will have a very important event on Monday, May 27th at Vedanta Retreat, Olima, Marin County. So we all cordially invite you to our annual Memorial Weekend Retreat at the Vedanta Retreat in Olima. After a long time, due to pandemic, we are very happy to announce that there will be a 2-day program on Sunday, May 26 and Monday 27. So our guest speaker will be Professor Michael Nagler of the Blue Mountain Center of Meditation. He will speak on a very interesting subject, which is very interesting, the relevance of Vedanta for America today. The relevance of Vedanta for America today. And Swami Tattwamayanandaji will speak on the topic from religion to spirituality. So these talks will be followed by a complimentary lunch. In the afternoon, there will be a Q&A, question answer session, in which the audience may directly engage the speakers in spiritual discussion. And it will be followed by takeout refreshments at 4 a.m. Please RSVP at this link. So you can find this announcement in our website homepage. If you go to Google vedanta.org, or if you just Google Vedanta Society San Francisco, you can reach our website homepage. Please do RSVP. The last day deadline for RSVP is 26th of May. So please remember this. And then we will have this. We won't have this Friday class on 25th. 24th will be no Friday class. Please remember that. And please watch our website homepage for more details. So there will be no Bhagavad Gita class until May 31st. Please remember. No Bhagavad Gita class at 7:30 in the Old Temple until May 31st, 2024. And no philosophy class, online class, until next Sunday, May 26th. That means the next class on the foundational text of Indian philosophy will be on May 26th. Okay? So, and yeah, please remember, next class will be, please remember, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. The next foundational text of Indian philosophy class will be on Sunday, June the 2nd. Please remember, I made a mistake. There will be no class on May 26th, but the next class will be on June the 2nd at 6 p.m. Please remember. So that you have to remember, next class will be on June 2nd. I hope everything is clear by now. And if you're
Maharaj,
yeah.
May I add to that announcement? There is plenty of parking there at the retreat in Olima.
Yeah, thank you for reminding.
And
yeah.
Of course, there are buses that go as well, but most people go by car.
Yeah.
And also, it's rain or shine. There is a tent.
Yeah. Please remember, there will be plenty of parking place. Enough parking space for almost 1,000 cars in Olima retreat. So you are most welcome. Please do RSVP, in our website, vedanta.org. Or just Google Vedanta Society of Northern California, San Francisco. You can reach our website homepage. So next class, next philosophy class will be on June the 2nd, Sunday. Thank you. Thank you everyone who asked questions. This is very helpful and very encouraging, Okay. And you please watch our website homepage. And that will give the latest information. Okay, thank you. And hoping to meet you all in Olima on 27th, Monday, Memorial Day. Thank you. Namaskar. Yeah. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Thank you.
Recording stopped.
Yeah. Thank you.